Hello, welcome to our next session which is about the storage management. We are going to talk about how to manage disks, how to do the partitioning, and how to use something called as LVM, which is the logical volume manager going forward. So I'm going to draw a diagram here for you so that we can have a better understanding. Now this box that I'm going to draw in front of you, consider this box as a hard disk that is attached to your system. So this is my hard disk, and in this hard disk we are going to store the data. Now before we store the data, there is the very first section of the hard disk which is formatted, and that is called as MBR. MBR stands for Master Boot Record. This is the section where the most important information, the first important information about the partition table and the bootloader program is kept. And the bootloader program is the one which kind of knows where the operating system is kept. So in this first section here, there is a partition table, information about the remaining part of the disk, and the bootloader program. Then the second thing is the one that I'm drawing right now, is the first partition of your hard disk. This is my first partition of my hard disk. Then I'm going to draw another square which is representing the second partition of my hard disk. These are the primary partitions. The primary partitions, there can be only four primary partitions on your hard disk, and when you create those four primary partitions on your hard disk, then you cannot create any additional partitions even if you have any remaining disk space, and that kind of creates a problem for us. So let us say now in this scenario I have already created three partitions. This is the third primary partition, and now in the remaining space like this, if I do not create this partition and if I only create half of the partition, the remaining space will be wasted. So this is not a good idea to waste the space. So what we do actually, we do not actually create a fourth partition which is spanning only part of the disk. We create a fourth partition which will span the entire disk, just to use the space. And this entire space, and when we create this partition, we don't call this as a primary partition, we call this as an extended partition. EXTENDED, extended partition. An extended partition is nothing but just a container, CONTAINER, just a container for the remaining additional partitions. So as you can see, the limitation that we have on our disk is that we can have only four primary partitions, but we have kind of a workaround towards that limitation by creating the extended partition, and because of that extended partition we can create additional partitions inside the extended partition, and these additional partitions can be as many as you like. So I'm drawing here now three additional partitions here. I could create as many as I like. I believe there is also a limitation there of 16, but you can create many partitions within the extended partitions, and these extended partitions are called as logical partitions. So logical partition number 1, then logical partition number 2, and logical partition number 3. So this is the 2, and then this is the 3 partition. All these are the logical partitions, and then the first partition, second partition, and the third partitions, those are the primary partitions. So this is what the layout, a typical layout of the hard disk is. You may configure your hard disk in a little different way. You may want to just have one primary partition and remaining whole thing as the extended partition. You can do it that way, or you can have two primary partitions and remaining everything is extended, but the limitation is that extended plus primary partitions cannot go beyond 4. So this is what the a typical background on how a hard disk can be partitioned. And now we are actually going to see in the next section how this is actually done. How do we create partitions, the primary and the extended partitions, and how do we create logical partitions inside the extended partitions? All that we are going to learn, and we will be learning commands like fdisk, and also we will be talking about a very good logical volume manager, which is another good partitioning tool. So in the next video we will talk about all these things in much more detail, but I just wanted to give you an idea about how the layout of the hard disk is. But remember this thing, you cannot have more than 4 partitions, and therefore we have an extended partition here. So I will see you in the next video where the actual